guidance are the different ways or styles in which we can present information and get better and more learning into sport and physical activity performance. So with that in mind, let's get straight into this and with an example. I'm going to give you an example here of visual guidance, okay? Visual guidance. And one of the things you'll notice here, obviously, apart from characterizing visual guidance, is we're going to evaluate it. So visual guidance, a great way of thinking about visual guidance is it typically involves some kind of mental picture, okay? It provides for the learners, the people who are trying to pick up the skill, in this case, presumably something to do with tennis, it provides them a mental picture of what they've got to do, right? That's what visual guidance does. It is typically characterized by a demonstration. Okay, so that's a nice term for you to get into your answers. And if you think about all the sporting sessions you've taken part in, probably that you've also even coached yourselves, they would probably involve demonstrations. Now, that demonstration will often be by a coach, for example, but it could be a video that we ask performers to watch and to follow and to use a guide. It could even be something like a wall chart. All of these, if pictorial, are examples of visual guidance. And again, can I stress the importance of this mental picture, because the mental picture, especially for novices, beginners, or what we might call cognitive stage learners, is really crucial, because that's how beginners learn. Now, we've got a series of positives that visual guidance will give us. Okay, so these are things that are really useful. This is a simple method of presenting information. That's an advantage. It's really good for beginners. As we've just said, beginners need to form a mental picture of a skill because they don't know what it feels like yet. So this is really, really effective. But there are problems with this method. So let's see if we can put some negatives in here. The red, I suppose. It's lots of information in one go. Lots of info in one go. Okay, so it could lead to overload with visual guidance potentially. And the other thing is lots of demos have issues of accuracy. Now, I don't want to judge this, presumably what is brilliant tennis coach, but I don't know what he's trying to demonstrate here. But it doesn't look great quality, does it? It looks fairly basic. So maybe the accuracy of the demo could lead to the actual learners, these guys over here, picking up the wrong information and therefore the wrong skill. Now, we're going to move on and we're going to go to verbal guidance. And can I please tell you, or indeed remind you, that there's no reason why any of these guidance methods need to be distinct and separate from one another. Good coaches will use all of them, often simultaneously. For example, imagine making a demonstration and not saying a word. It's not realistic, is it? So what is verbal guidance? Well, I think the best thing we can describe this, let me not use green actually, because I'm going to use that for something else. It is instruction. So think about when you get instructions in your sport. Is it about tactics? Is it about what I'm going to write down now, which is coaching points? Okay, like you need to toss the ball higher. Your non-hitting arm is not in the right position. These are coaching points, right? That's what we mean. And these have got positives and negatives, okay? So let's go positives first. The positives, and by the way, these are really good for things like tactics, but the great thing about verbal guidance is it's specific and often individualized, actually. In fact, that can be something we make as a positive. It's individualized. Now, obviously, our coach here is giving group verbal feedback, but there's no reason why it can't be individualized. But there are negatives too, guys, and we would include the following. It is time consuming. Okay, it is time consuming. Okay, a coach could be, it's almost endless really, and it can lead to overload or information overload. If we do too much coaching with students and give them sort of 5, 6, 7 coaching points or keep repeating coaching points, it may be that they become confused and overloaded by the amount of information that we're sharing with them. Let's move on, because I think these two are probably two that people consider less. The one we've got here on the left is a classic example of coaching or parenting. I suppose it could be, I bet every single one of you at some point has been, so at least someone's tried to teach you to learn to ride a bike, and many will have done so successfully. It might be by a parent or family member or friend. But what we're talking about here is the idea of manual guidance. Manual guidance. Now, manual guidance is where an instructor, a coach, could be a parent, I mean, why not? They physically guide. Okay, so it's physically guiding. I mean, literally, it's laying the hands on the performer, and we'll come back to that in a few moments' time. What the coach will tend to do, let's say it's a coach, they will tend to adjust performance. Okay, so for example, let's say we've got the cycling example here. It may well be that this character here is holding the back of the seat, for example, or the back of the shirt could be even, or just sort of got hand on the back, and they're helping in this case the learner to balance and remain on those skinny wheel bikes. And it could be even more relevant, they're on the flat here at the cycling track, but when they go onto the when they go onto the camber and they go onto the actual track, it could be quite steep, right? So they don't want them to fall off. But you can adjust performance in there, and you can really cause performers to achieve the correct technique. Now think about a swimming teacher or swimming coach, for example, putting their hands on the ankles of a swimmer and moving their legs in the breaststroke leg kick technique, for example. It could really lead to the correct technique before the swimmer perhaps is able to figure it out. A lot of manual guidance I've personally seen is also in the idea of spotting and supporting in gymnastic activities. I've also seen a lot in racket sports where it's grip adjustment and foot position adjustment, where they sort of shufty their hip around or change the angle of the wrist. This would be examples of manual guidance where the coach actually moves you into those positions. Now, of course, again, there's strengths and weaknesses. So what are they? It's very good for beginners because it gives beginners a feeling of the correct skill before they actually have a go at it. Secondly, we've got the notion here that it gives a kinesthetic sense. Okay, so performers can get a kinesthetic sense, a sense of what correct feels like before they themselves can do it. Now, there are a couple of negatives, so let's put those negatives just in here. We've got one of the negatives is no good for whole groups. So imagine you've got loads and loads of cyclists, say, or swimmers. You can't do manual guidance with all of them. It doesn't work. That's where your demo is probably going to come. And it involves permissions. Now, obviously, I don't want to go too far down that road, but putting your hands on a young person, if you're not their parent, for example, well, even if you're their parent, it can be an awkward thing. Therefore, permission's important. Therefore, understanding of the purpose of doing it and appropriateness, of course, is important. I won't take that any further, but I'm sure you can figure out in your own mind what I'm referring to there. Now, finally, we're going to talk about mechanical guidance. And I'm going to say these are some of my favourite types of guidance because it's often the change-up that you're using in a coaching session. So what is mechanical guidance? It is the use of aids and objects. So we've got a trampolining harness here as our example, but it could be a bowling machine. It could be a series of coloured cones that a table tennis player has to hit as they strike a forehand over the net. These are aids and objects which increase performance. So let me give you some examples. I've mentioned some. We've got a harness. We've got, it could be a crash mat that would work in trampolining as well. It could be that we're talking about something like cones. It could be ropes. It could be bowling machine. I won't keep listing these things out because I would go on endlessly here. It could be parachutes, pulleys. There's all kinds of things that you could use potentially as different examples of mechanical guidance to help the performer. Now, why are they good? Why would we use them? So the positives are they increase up arrow safety. That, of course, increases confidence as a result of that. So let's put that one in. Increase up arrow confidence. You know, imagine this person here is doing their first ever somersault. That harness on is going to give them a lot more confidence to give it a right good go compared to I might land on me nut and that on my head. So that's going to be sort of something they want to think about. But also one of the negatives is performers become reliant on the aid. They won't be able to do it without it if it's overused. And finally, mechanical guidance can be expensive. Now, I've written down here, bowling machine. These are thousands of pounds, okay? So that's a negative and a drawback. Now, all of these guidance methods, they can be used in combination or in isolation to provide a better learning experience and expose learners to what needs to be learned. Thanks.